Good morning, this is Jack from theartchart.net, and this is the pre-market recording for Tuesday the 29th of May. Our disclaimer: we do this for educational purposes only. We're here to share our technical analysis with you. We hope you can take some of what we're doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. We're not here to issue trading signals. Right, had a few problems this morning, mainly due to having spilt coffee on my keyboard. Hey, it's all sorted out now. Moved on to a new keyboard as the old one more or less died. Might be rescuable after the coffee dries. Okay, let's start. Yes, now we've seen some weakness overnight because of ostensibly because of the chances of Italy leaving the European Union. This has sent the dollar up, the euro down, and markets down so far. We are testing support on ES at 2700. If that breaks, there is obviously, and it has already broken down slightly, there is obviously a very clear double top setup here. That's got a target in the 2660 area, 2660.5 I think. And if we see a sustained break below 2700, that will be the likely target. If we reject back up, and I have to say the double top is now supported by the ascending triangle, which is also broken down and has been back tested. So the pattern setup is definitely leaning towards the downside. If we see a rejection here, back above 2700, then we would be looking at a move back to retest these highs and likely higher. So I think it's likely to be one way or the other. Pattern setup is leaning somewhat short. Right, let's have a look at NQ. NQ, we've still, by the way, on ES and NQ and I think RUT, all of them are on open RSI 14 sell signals. I was thinking these would be making target after we got to 2760 to 70, but obviously they could make target now. And if we did get down to that area, then they would make target now. Right, NQ. NQ, slight lower high here, and really, I'd be expecting to see an exact test of the high, but possibly this is nested double tops. The first double top is broken down with the target about the 68.70 area, and if we were to see a sustained break below 68.25, then we would have a target in the 66.50 area. I'm doubtful about reaching that, but the pattern setup is there, and it's worth noting. This would be more likely, in my view, to be a bull flag channel forming. In which case we'd be looking for a low probably in the 68.25 area. Okay, TF, I've got some trendline support here. Wouldn't take an awful lot to break that, but it hasn't broken yet. This could be a larger bull flag megaphone. Nice support trendline there. Watching it with interest. If we break below it, then I don't have any obvious alternate trend lines for a while, so I would have thought we'd test 1600 and likely go lower. Hang on, wait a second. Someone has their microphone on. I had this problem the other day and I couldn't find any microphones on, but Jeff has his microphone on today, so I'll just turn that off. Okay. Right, let's have a look at CL. Now, CL, obviously we saw a big breakdown the other day. Saudis made an announcement. Oil going down. We got down to 66 odd. We've got pretty decent support between 66 and 65, so it's an obvious place to rally. It might just be a rally though, because this looks like a bear flag forming. So I would have thought the obvious next move is a retest, or coming soon would be a retest of this low, and then ideally I would like to see a rally to recover most of this new spike down, because normally we would see that rally, and then that could well be the right shoulder on a head and shoulders forming. That right shoulder, as we'd be coming off this sort of neckline here, might only get up to the weekly pivot in the 69.40 area, because that's where the left shoulder high would be. We shall see. NG has broken down below megaphone support, which was a surprise, not a huge surprise, but a surprise. So likely to be in a topping process here, but obviously we already have a double top here. It's already broken down, and it's got a target in approximately the 2.872 area. I'm not seeing any obvious reason to think that isn't going to make target. We've got no positive divergence at the moment. This megaphone, well, we're reaching the 38.2% fib retracement now. We might form a larger pattern, but it may well be the NG high is in. GC, we came back up, we broke slightly through wedge resistance, and this likely puts us into a bottoming process on GC. Unless obviously we're going to break down. So I'm not expecting to see a breakdown here. I'm thinking that this would be a very obvious time to go and retest this low. And as it happens, since I adjusted the trend lines because they always move on a weekend, we've actually had a very nice support trend line here break. So I think we'd be on the way to that now. If we're going to see a high on DX soon, and we well might, for a retracement, and possibly more than that, then that's when we would expect to see a GC rally start. I think in the interim, GC is likely to retest this low, and I think the same is probably true on HG, which came down, broke this trend line with conviction, is below the monthly pivot, weekly pivot resistance, and came down, didn't get that far away from a retest this low, and I suspect it's going to go all the way and retest this low. That won't be the second low of a double bottom. It has gone too high. Well, not a likely double bottom anyway, but I think we would be expecting another move up after that, but we may or may not get it. Certainly the bigger picture charts are suggesting we might not get it. ZB has gone higher here, and I just want to flip over to the TNX chart to have a look at it there, because TNX, obviously the market opens earlier than ES and SPX and so on. Now, here we've got a possible double top that's broken down, but the main thing here is I've been talking forever about the unfinished business of this trend line here. We're now actually pretty close to getting there. This would be a really obvious time to go and visit that trend line. We never made it here. I've been talking about it on and off ever since then as a possible target. We broke down from this rising wedge. We've come down, and we're pretty close to the 61.8% retrace. I think we're likely to hit this trend line. That could break, but I think we're likely to hit it. So we'll see how that goes. On the daily chart, we are on a daily RSI 14 sell signal. The RSI 5 sell signal has made target, but the RSI 14 sell signal still has some mileage in it. I'm expecting to see a bit lower. I'm expecting to see a test of this trend line. If that breaks, then that potentially opens up more downside on TNX and upside on ZB, but at the moment I'm just looking for a touch of it. We're not quite there yet, but equally we're not that far away. So I'm thinking this would be a very obvious time to go and hit that. We've had a number of obvious opportunities, and it hasn't hit it yet. But the reason I've been talking about it being unfinished business below is because it really is unfinished business below. It should go and hit it. We're not far away from it now. I'm expecting to see that. That might be hit at a full retracement back into this area here, 146.26 area, I think. And unless we see a conviction break back below monthly pivot and then a break back below weekly pivot, then I'm really expecting to see that next. I don't have a decent rising support trend line here. I don't have a decent pattern here yet. That is suggesting to me that this move is not finished. Because by the time it is finished, I would normally have a decent pattern set up. DX, we've got a rising wedge here, and it overthrew, and it's broken up. So the first thing is, what's the wedge target? So they've got 94.30 here on the upside. We've got 93.25 down here. This is looking for approximately the 95.30 area. We made it up to about 95. Stan's thinking wave 3 here, and then we need a bit of a 4 and a bit of a 5. I think the obvious target for me would be the 95.35 area. That would be the wedge target, and hopefully that might give me an overall pattern, which I don't think I've got yet. Okay, let's have a look at Euro. I was just saying to a friend the other day that I did have a target down in the 115 area, which I was wondering if Euro USD was going to hit. It's gone and hit it. So I have actually some decent trend line support here. We'll see. If DX needs to go higher, then probably chances are this goes a bit lower. We've got a very nice support trend line here. This is a pretty decent looking channel. I'm wondering if we might head up to channel resistance and then come back into channel support and make the low there. We shall see. But I like that scenario. I do have some support here. GBP USD. GBP USD, I've got a pretty decent looking wedge here. We haven't broken over resistance. 1, 2, 3, This is 3 recent hits. I'm thinking this is a falling wedge short term in all probability. We've gone a bit lower. I wouldn't be surprised to see this break up soon, but I would note that we still have an open double top target at 1.303, and we're getting pretty close to that. USD JPY, I've got a very nice falling wedge from the high here. This is pretty decent, looking for a test of wedge resistance next in the 109.2 area to confirm it. This is the sort of, well, this is a likely bull flag. So as and when this breaks up, we'd probably see a retest this high, or possibly just a right shoulder, maybe find resistance at the weekly pivot and then down. We shall see how that goes. USD CAD has broken a bit higher, and that opens higher targets. Overall, I've had a look at this, and I've actually got a pretty decent looking rising channel. I'm wondering about a possible test of channel resistance. That's increasingly a match with a retest of this high here. We're getting pretty close to that. We might go the rest of the way. We are in a lot of resistance here. We've had a lot of reversals in the 1.3 area. Australian dollar. Australian dollar is still showing no sign at all of breaking up this IHS with any force. It's possible we could see a retest of the low. I'm not seeing a strong case for it, and to be honest, with USD spiking up overnight, this isn't a particularly big move. So not really seeing an IHS alternative. Keeping an open mind. NZ. NZ is still within the likely bear flag channel, hasn't broken down from it yet. Obviously, to retest the low, we would need to break down from it. There are various IHS options here, but at the moment, this doesn't look as though we'd be forming a right shoulder on any of them. We'd probably need to go a bit higher and then do a right shoulder. So watching that with interest. All right, KC. KC, I've got this in a triangle here. I'm not sure this is, actually, I think this may well be an Elliott wave triangle. So it's a pretty decent looking triangle, and we're waiting for a resolution. My lean would be that this would likely break upwards. SB, I've got this in a pretty decent looking rising wedge. The next obvious target within the wedge would be wedge resistance, currently in the 1285 area. We are on a 60-minute sell signal, though that's not actually translated into much downside so far. We could come up here and make a double top here. That would be the first signal that was going to be breaking down seriously, would be a break below the weekly pivot. CC, I've got a very decent little falling wedge here. It keeps expanding a bit, i.e. coming up, forming, breaking the resistance trend line, and then coming back and touching the support trend line again. That expands the wedge, and that's why I moved the trend line. So we've now got wedge resistance and weekly pivot crossing in the 2600 area. As and when, well, wedges usually break up. If this one broke down a bit, then we could actually make this head and shoulder target, which we're getting increasingly closer to, although I think the action is suggesting that we're not going to. So, but for what that's worth, that's in the 2490 area. ZW, we've got a pretty decent looking rising wedge here. It's overthrown slightly at the high. We've got no current divergence, but this is obviously these break down 70% of the time, and this overthrow is suggesting we might be about to break down. So if it breaks down, I'd expect to see at least a test of the weekly pivot at 530.33, and may well be lower. We'll see. I don't think I've got an overall pattern here yet. I will be having more of a look later. Okay, in that case, I think that's a wrap. I'm going to stop the recording and answer some questions.